Grant Whitcomb called me a beggar with his hand resting on my daughter's engagement quilt. That is the part people always want me to soften when I tell it. They think maybe he meant poor or old-fashioned or sentimental. They think maybe the room was noisy and I misheard. I did not mishear. The church hall had gone so quiet I could hear rain sliding down the basement windows. Someone's paper plate bent in half near the coffee urn. My daughter Maren stood beside the gift table in her cream sweater, one hand still lifted toward the blue and white quilt I had carried in under my coat, and her face lost all its colour. Grant looked at the quilt as if I had brought in a bag of trash from the curb. "This beggar routine isn't good enough for my son," he told me. "And it certainly isn't good enough for the family my son is marrying into." He did not shout the way men shout in parking lots. He used a clean, reasonable voice, the kind a banker might use while explaining why your signature did not match. That made it worse. He wanted the whole room to understand he had measured me and found me lacking. I was 68 years old. I had spent 32 of those years shelving books at the Allegheny County Branch Library, stamping due dates, mending torn children's pages with tape so carefully the seam nearly vanished. I knew how to stand still while someone complained about a 20-cent fine as if I had personally stolen from them. I knew how to keep my voice even, but my hand tightened around the folded quilt until the pins in the binding pressed through the cloth and into my palm. Maren whispered, "Mom." Daniel, her fiancé, moved like he might step between us, then stopped when his father's eyes cut toward him. That small stop told me more than a speech would have. The open house had been Maren's idea. Not a shower, not a formal engagement party, just coffee and sheet cake in the church hall because Daniel's parents wanted to meet my side before the wedding planning got serious. I had spent the morning worrying the quilt was too plain. Blue calico squares, white backing, small stitched stars along the border because Maren used to point at winter constellations through our kitchen window after her father died. I had wrapped it in tissue from last Christmas and tied it with ribbon I ironed flat under a towel. Grant's wife, Patricia, stood 2 steps behind him in a camel coat that looked soft as butter. She glanced at me, then at the quilt, then at the guests watching from the folding chairs. "Grant," she murmured, not because she was sorry, but because he had said the private thing out loud. A woman from Daniel's office looked down into her coffee. My neighbour Ruth sat very straight in the second row of chairs, her pocketbook clutched to her chest. The church custodian, Mr. Alvarez, had been carrying extra napkins from the kitchen. He stopped in the doorway and did not move. I wanted Maren's engagement day back. That was my first foolish wish. Not justice, not apology, just a rewind of 5 minutes before Grant's words landed on the gift table and stained everything. So I did what I had trained myself to do for years. I made myself smaller. "It's only a quilt," I managed. My voice sounded thin, like paper rubbed too many times at the fold. Grant gave a short laugh. "Exactly." Maren's eyes filled, but she did not cry. She had always hated crying in public. At 7 years old, after we buried her father, she waited until every casserole dish had been washed and every neighbour had left before she crawled into my lap and made a sound I had never heard from a child before. Now she looked at Daniel. "Say something," she told him. Daniel's mouth opened. He was a decent young man in many ways. He changed my porch bulb without being asked. He brought Maren soup when she had the flu. He sent thank you notes in handwriting so neat it looked practiced. But decency that depends on permission is a fragile thing. "Dad," Daniel's voice came low. "That's enough." Grant did not even turn fully toward him. "No," he answered. "This is exactly when enough needs to be said. Before sentiment becomes obligation." The word obligation moved through the room like a draft under a door. I looked down at the quilt. One loose thread curved over the top square, and all I could think was that I should have clipped it before leaving the house. A ridiculous thought, but shame makes women my age inventory everything that might prove the other person right. The worn cuffs on my coat, the rain spots on my shoes, the homemade gift instead of crystal from a registry. Maren stepped forward and touched my wrist. "Come with me," she whispered. I let her guide me away from the gift table because I thought leaving the room might save her. Behind us, the conversations did not restart. They hung there, unfinished and embarrassed, while the quilt remained on the table beneath Grant Whitcomb's hand. At the hallway door, I turned once. Grant had already lifted his coffee cup again. Patricia was smoothing the tissue paper around my gift, not gently, just neatly, as if tidiness could make cruelty respectable. And Daniel stood between his father and my daughter, looking at the floor. That was the first silence. It would not be the last. Maren did not take me far. The hallway outside the church basement smelled like wet wool and lemon floor cleaner, and the old fluorescent light above the coat rack flickered in a way that made her engagement ring flash on and off. She closed the hall door behind us, but not all the way. A strip of sound slipped through, cups being set down too carefully. One cough. Patricia's low voice attempting to restart the room. "Mum, I am so sorry." Maren held both my wrists as if I might fall. He had no right. None. I looked at her fingers around mine. She had my hands, narrow through the palm, with one crooked little finger from when she slammed it in the back door at 12. I had taken her to urgent care that night in my library cardigan because I had come straight from closing shift. She had been so brave until the nurse brought out the splint. "Don't make your party worse," I told her. The words came out before I had weighed them. Old habit. If something hurt me, my first instinct was to make sure it did not inconvenience my child. Maren's face tightened. "This is already worse." Daniel came into the hallway then, rubbing one hand over his mouth. He looked younger outside that room, away from his father's polished shoes and Patricia's quiet corrections. "Leah," he began. I don't know what to say. That was honest, at least. I folded my hands under the quilt bag to hide the little crescent marks the pins had made in my palm. "Your father is concerned for you. Parents get clumsy when they're afraid." Maren stared at me. "Mom." I knew that tone. She had used it when she was 16 and caught me eating toast for dinner so she could have lunch money for the week. The tone meant, "Do not dress this up for me." Daniel leaned against the cinder block wall. "Dad can be blunt about money. He thinks he's protecting us." "From what?" Maren's voice sharpened. "A quilt?" Daniel looked toward the hall door. "From expectations. From things becoming complicated later." I felt something small and cold settle under my ribs. Maren's voice came sharper. "What expectations?" He did not answer quickly enough. I watched his eyes move to the quilt bag and then away, not with disgust, with worry. That worried me more. Before Maren could press him, Patricia opened the door. She had put on a smile that belonged on a Christmas card, mailed to someone she barely knew. Patricia opened with a practiced brightness. "There you are. Maren, sweetheart. Everyone is waiting for cake. We should not let one awkward moment ruin a lovely afternoon." An awkward moment. I almost admired the workmanship of it. 2 words and Grant's cruelty became a social wrinkle we were all responsible for smoothing. Maren did not move. "Your husband insulted my mother." Patricia sighed, soft and tired. "Grant chooses unfortunate language when he feels protective. You know how men of his generation can be." Grant was 5 years younger than me. I noticed Daniel noticed that and then noticed him decide not to say it. Patricia turned to me. "Leah, I hope you understand this is not personal." A person can live nearly 7 decades and still be surprised by that sentence. Not personal, after a man has looked at your coat, your gift, your daughter, and named you a beggar in front of a room. I understand he has worries. Maren made a sound like I had stepped on her foot. Patricia seemed relieved. Exactly. Weddings bring out all sorts of sensitivities. And Daniel and Maren are entering a different stage of life now. They need room to build without everyone leaning too hard on them. Everyone. I had not asked Maren for money once in my life. When the furnace motor died 2 winters before, I put the repair on a credit card and wore 2 sweaters until the statement came. When my car needed tyres, I took the bus to the library branch reunion rather than mention it. Pride can be foolish, but mine had never reached into my daughter's purse. Still, standing there in my damp shoes with a homemade quilt, I felt the old accounting begin inside me. Maybe I had accepted too many rides. Maybe Maren had bought the good ham last Easter because she thought I could not. Maybe every casserole dish I sent home with her looked, to people like Patricia, like a hook hidden under foil. Maren let go of my wrists and faced Daniel. "Do you think my mother leans on us?" Daniel's cheeks reddened. "No, I mean, not the way Dad made it sound." "What way is that?" He swallowed. "Can we please not do this here?" That was when I made my first mistake of the afternoon. I touched Maren's sleeve. "Honey, go cut your cake." Her eyes filled again, not with tears this time, but with anger at me. "Stop trying to disappear," she whispered. I had no answer for that. From inside the hall, someone laughed too loudly, trying to prove the party could still be saved. Patricia held the door wider, and warm coffee air rolled into the hallway. I followed because I still believed peace was something an older mother could buy with enough silence. When we returned, the blue and white quilt was no longer on the gift table. For a moment, I thought someone had taken it to admire the stitching. Then I saw it folded on a chair beneath the coat rack, half covered by a man's wet overcoat, with one corner dragging close to the floor. I crossed the hall without asking permission. A grey wool coat lay across the quilt, rainwater darkening one sleeve. I lifted it carefully because manners had been sewn into me tighter than any seam. The quilt corner had picked up a smear of dust from the floor. Not much. Nothing that would ruin it. Still, I rubbed the mark with my thumb until the skin grew warm. Ruth appeared beside me with her pocketbook still clutched under one arm. "Leah, I saw Patricia move it," she murmured. She told that tall cousin it was taking up too much space. The gift table held a crystal bowl from Grant and Patricia's friends, a boxed stand mixer from Daniel's office, and 3 silver picture frames still in their tissue. My quilt had taken up less room than the mixer. "It is all right." I folded the quilt against my chest. Ruth gave me the look women give each other when one of them is lying to survive the next 5 minutes. Across the room, Patricia was cutting sheet cake into narrow rectangles. Grant stood near the coffee urn with 2 men in overcoats, his shoulders relaxed now that order had returned. Daniel was listening to Maren near the piano, and from the set of her jaw, I knew she was not letting him off gently. I should have stayed with my daughter. Instead, I went to the kitchen because the quilt needed a damp cloth and because my face needed somewhere to be. The church kitchen was narrow and old, with metal cabinets that shut with a flat clang and a wall calendar from a plumbing company. I set the quilt on the stainless counter and dabbed the dusty corner. The blue fabric darkened under the water, then slowly lightened again. Through the service window, voices from the hall carried in broken pieces. Not about her personally. That was Patricia, then Grant, clearer because men like him never seem to lower their voices when discussing people they have dismissed. It is exactly about patterns. Maren comes from scarcity. Scarcity teaches people to grab at security. Daniel needs to understand that before papers are signed. The cloth froze in my hand. Another man made a doubtful sound. "She seems like a nice woman." "Nice has nothing to do with it," Grant replied. "I have seen this before. Adult children get married and suddenly mother's roof leaks, mother's car fails, mother needs a room. No one calls it dependency until it is already built into the marriage." My roof had leaked. He could not have known that unless someone had told him. Or unless he had guessed the way rich people guess, turning every ordinary repair into evidence of moral weakness. Patricia's voice floated through next. "Maren is tender-hearted. It is part of what Daniel loves about her. But tenderness needs structure." Structure. That word sounded expensive in her mouth. I pressed the cloth into the quilt too hard. Water spread through one white square and blurred the pencil mark I had not fully erased from the quilting line. For one foolish second, I wanted to march out there and list every bill I had paid without help, the mortgage after Tom died, the funeral balance. Maren's community college textbooks bought used from a website that shipped them smelling like basements. The violin rental she quit after 6 months because she saw the invoice on my dresser. But I did not move. Pride kept me still and fear helped it. I had learned long ago that older women who defend themselves too loudly are treated as proof of the accusation. Difficult, emotional, ungrateful, a burden with a voice. The kitchen door opened behind me. Mr. Alvarez came in carrying a tray of empty cups. He noticed my hand on the quilt, then looked away with the courtesy of someone who has seen more than he was meant to see. "You need a bag for that, Mrs. Harlow?" His English still held the edges of Puerto Rico after 40 years in Pennsylvania. "Rain's not letting up." "I have one, thank you." He set the tray down. "Homemade things make some people nervous. They don't know how to price them." I laughed once, not because it was funny, but because he had put his finger on the bruise without pressing too hard. "I suppose a quilt is harder to scan at a register." "My mother made blankets," he offered. "Every grandchild got one. My brother married a woman who wanted everything from a store. First winter, guess what was on their bed?" I smiled despite myself, the first honest movement of my face since Grant spoke. Then the hall door opened again, and Daniel's cousin stepped into the kitchen with a stack of plates. He was the tall one Ruth had mentioned, college age with wet hair combed back. "Oh," he mumbled when he saw me. "Sorry. Mrs. Whitcomb said to put anything homemade back here if the table got crowded." Anything homemade. Not gifts. Not Leah's quilt. Anything homemade, like extra napkins or leftover pie. Mr. Alvarez's jaw shifted, but he said nothing. The cousin looked embarrassed in the casual way young people do when they have repeated an adult's cruelty before understanding it. "I didn't mean... I just did what she told me." "I know." I lifted the quilt into my arms. When I returned to the hall, I did not put it back where it had been. I carried it to the piano bench beside Maren's purse and sat down with it across my lap. Grant watched me from the coffee urn. Patricia watched the quilt. Daniel watched Maren. And Maren, God bless her, watched all of us. Maren came to the piano bench 10 minutes later with her purse under one arm and 2 bright spots of anger high on her cheeks. "We're leaving," she told me. Daniel stood a few feet behind her, looking as if he had followed but not led. That mattered to me, though I wished it did not. I liked him. Liking someone makes it harder to admit where their courage thins. "You don't have to leave your own open house," I told her. "I do if staying means pretending this is normal." She reached for the quilt bag, then stopped when Patricia appeared beside us with a cake plate. Patricia had a way of arriving softly, like a curtain being drawn. "Maren, before you make any emotional decisions, Daniel's father would like 5 minutes with you both in the side room." Her eyes moved to me for one polished second. Just family logistics. Just family. There are phrases that put an older mother outside the door without touching her. Maren's chin lifted. "My mother is family." Patricia's smile did not break, but it hardened. "Of course, I meant the 2 of you and Daniel's parents. Since the wedding finances involve our household." Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. "Mare, maybe we should hear them out and then go." I saw Maren's shoulders sag half an inch. Not surrender. Weariness. She was standing between love and money. Between a man she planned to marry and a mother she had spent her life trying not to worry. So I did what I always did. I tried to spare her one side of the weight. "Go on," I told her. "I'll gather my things." Her eyes flashed. "No." But Daniel touched her elbow, and the small contact carried a plea. She looked at him, then at me. And I could see the arithmetic hurting her. 5 minutes, she decided. Then we're leaving. They followed Patricia toward the Sunday school room off the hallway. Grant joined them with his coffee still in hand. I watched the door close. For a while, I sat on the piano bench with the quilt across my lap, listening to Ruth talk too loudly to Mr. Alvarez about the Steelers, because kind people sometimes build little fences of noise around humiliation. Guests drifted toward the cake table. No one mentioned Grant's words. That is how rooms protect the powerful. They pretend the wound is private even when everyone watched the knife go in. Then I noticed Maren's purse still beside me. She had forgotten it on the piano bench. Her phone buzzed inside, then buzzed again. I did not reach for it. A woman's purse is a private room, but when I lifted the quilt to set it inside the tote bag, my thimble rolled off the bench and under the little table where Maren had placed her purse. I bent down slowly, knees complaining, and saw the thimble wedged against a manila folder. The folder was not in Maren's purse. It had slid halfway out of Daniel's leather bag, which leaned under the table beside it. On the tab, in neat printed letters, were the words, Whitcomb Miller, prenuptial draft. Miller was Maren's last name, mine too, after I took it back when Tom died because Harlow had belonged to my second marriage and I could not bear carrying it alone. The folder should not have meant anything to me. Young couples with property sign papers now. I had shelved enough personal finance books to know that. Then I saw a yellow sticky note on the front. Remove parental leakage clause, only if G approves. I stayed bent too long, my back starting to burn. I should have stood up. I should have left that folder where it was, and let my daughter tell me what she wanted me to know. But after being called a beggar in a room full of people, the phrase parental leakage did something ugly inside me. It made me less noble. I pulled the folder out just enough to open the first page. The paper shook in my hand, though I was not cold anymore. Most of it was ordinary legal language, dense and dry. Separate property, marital property, debt responsibility. I scanned without really understanding until a heading caught my eye. Family support restrictions. No marital funds shall be directed toward recurring support, housing, medical expenses, debts, repairs, transportation, or emergency relief for either party's parent, without prior written agreement by both parties and disclosure to Grant A. Whitcomb during the first 5 years of marriage if Whitcomb family funds are used toward residence purchase, renovation, or wedding expenses. Under that, another paragraph had been circled in blue ink. Particular concern: Leah Miller, mother of Maren Miller, presents foreseeable dependency risk due to age, limited retirement assets, home maintenance needs, and demonstrated emotional influence over Maren Miller. My name looked strange in that sentence. Official. Smaller than ink. I heard the side room door open down the hall and shoved the folder back so fast the paper sliced the side of my finger. A thin red line opened near my knuckle. Maren came out first, walking quickly. Daniel followed, pale and tight around the mouth. Grant's voice trailed after them. This is exactly why these protections exist. Emotion clouds judgment. Maren saw me holding my finger. Mum, you're bleeding. I closed my hand. For the first time all afternoon, I did not say it was nothing. Maren took me into the church office, the little room behind the coat closet where the secretary kept offering envelopes and attendance pads. She shut the door with her hip and turned on the desk lamp. The yellow shade made everything look older, including my hand. Let me see. It's just paper. Mom. I opened my fingers. The cut was narrow, already beading again. Maren found tissues on the desk and pressed one around my knuckle. Her own hands were trembling now. Daniel hovered by the filing cabinet, not entering fully, not leaving either. What happened? Maren's voice had gone low. I looked at Daniel. His face told me he knew about the folder, if not every word inside it. I saw the agreement, I answered. Maren went still. The old Leah, the one from 20 minutes earlier, would have apologized for snooping. She would have explained about the thimble, the folder, the accidental glimpse. She would have given everyone a little bridge back to comfort. But my name was still burning in my mind. Foreseeable dependency risk. They wrote me into it, I continued. Not as your mother, as a problem to be contained. Daniel shut his eyes briefly. Maren turned toward him. You told me that clause was standard. I thought it was. His voice cracked around the edges. Dad said it was about both families, about transparency. Did you read the part about her? He did not answer. Maren stepped back as if the space between them had changed shape. I touched the quilt bag on the chair beside me. My finger left a tiny dot of blood on the tissue paper. I stared at it because it was easier than watching my daughter's face rearrange itself around new pain. I need to show you something, I told her. The quilt bag had a false bottom. Not because I was clever exactly, because a woman who has carried bus money in her bra and grocery coupons in her Bible learns to make pockets wherever pockets can exist. I had sewn one into the lining for the card I planned to give them after dessert. Inside were 4 envelopes and a folded sheet of yellow legal paper. Maren frowned when she saw her own name written across one envelope in my blocky library hand. What is this? Receipts. I laid them on the secretary's desk one by one. The first was from McKee's Rocks Roofing, marked paid for the patch over my kitchen where rain had come through 2 winters ago. The second was from the credit union, showing the final payment on the small loan I had taken after Tom's hospital bills swallowed the emergency fund. The third was a cashier's check made out to the contractor who had inspected the little brick duplex Maren and Daniel wanted to buy after the wedding. Maren picked that one up. This is for our electrical work. Part of it. She stared at the amount. Mum, this is $4,000. $4,200. The bank fee was $8. Even then, I corrected the number. Habit again. Numbers had kept us fed. Daniel moved closer. Leah, where did that come from? Not suspicious. Ashamed, but shame can still ask a question that hurts. From shelving extra shifts before I retired. From mending church choir robes when my hands were better. From selling Tom's fishing boat to a man in Beaver Falls who tried to talk me down 3 times. From not replacing the recliner where the springs poke through. Maren sat in the secretary's chair as if her knees had loosened. I unfolded the legal paper. It was my ledger, though calling it that made it sound grander than it was. Dates, deposits, repairs, small notes in the margins, Maren furnace help, not needed yet, wedding dress emergency maybe, house inspection, if Daniel's loan clears. I had written in pencil because pencil allowed hope to change direction. I was going to give this to you privately, I told her, not in front of anyone. I didn't want you feeling beholden. Maren's thumb moved over the page. You let me think you couldn't help with the wedding. I can't help with centerpieces and chair covers. I can help with a breaker box that won't burn your house down. A laugh escaped her, broken and wet. Then she looked at the roof receipt again. You told me insurance covered this. Some of it. Mum. There was the word again, but softer this time, younger. I wanted to defend myself, which was ridiculous. I wanted to tell her mothers are allowed to keep some corners of sacrifice hidden. I wanted to say I had not lied to manipulate her. I had lied because watching your child worry over you is its own kind of poverty. Instead, I touched the quilt. The backing has your grandmother's blue house dress in 2 squares. Your father's work shirt is in the border, the one with the paint near the cuff. I put my ledger in the bag because I thought maybe, years from now, you would like knowing where the money came from. Daniel looked at the quilt differently then. Not enough to fix everything, enough for me to see that he was finally understanding the distance between homemade and worthless. Maren pressed the tissue around my finger again, though the bleeding had stopped. He called you a beggar, she whispered, and you were sitting here with receipts for us. No one spoke after that. Outside the office door, the party continued in careful fragments, forks on paper plates, a burst of nervous laughter. Rain ticking against the small window above the file cabinet. Maren gathered the envelopes and held them against her chest. For once, I did not take the weight back from her. Grant did not knock before opening the office door. He filled the doorway with Patricia behind him and Daniel's uncle peering over one shoulder. Some men learn to enter small rooms as if they own the air inside them. Grant had that habit polished smooth. His eyes went first to Maren, then to the envelopes in her arms, then to me. So this is where everyone disappeared. Maren stood. We were talking. Clearly. Grant stepped in, making Daniel move aside. And now Leah has decided to turn a practical document into a personal injury. The calm arrangement of blame was so neat I noticed it like a crooked page in the copier tray. I had spent years listening to people at the library blame the machine for pages they put in wrong. Maren held up the folded draft. You called my mother a dependency risk. Your mother is retirement age, widowed, living on limited income, and emotionally close to you. Grant spread one hand. Those are facts, not insults. You called her a beggar in front of our friends. His mouth tightened, not with regret, with irritation that the ugly part kept being repeated. Patricia entered gently, her heels quiet on the worn linoleum. Maren, nobody is saying your mother is a bad person, but marriage is partly financial discipline. It is better to discuss these things before resentment builds. Resentment from whom? Maren's voice trembled. Patricia's gaze flicked toward Daniel. From anyone who feels pressured later. Daniel looked at the floor again, and this time I felt anger rise toward him sharp enough to scare me. Not because he was cruel, because he was letting careful people use his silence as furniture. Grant noticed my expression. Leah, you may not appreciate this, but I have protected my family for 40 years by naming problems early. Daniel has a future. Maren has potential. They do not need to begin their marriage tangled in old obligations. Old obligations. I thought of Tom's work shirt stitched into the quilt border. I thought of Maren asleep at 9 years old under the library desk during a snow delay because school closed before my shift ended. I thought of every parent I knew who became an obligation only after their hands stopped being useful. The office felt too warm. The desk lamp hummed beside my elbow. I wanted to sit down, but I would not give Grant the satisfaction of seeing my knees complain. I have never asked my daughter to support me, I told him. Not yet. Maren flinched. 2 words can be more revealing than a paragraph. Not yet meant he had already written my future in his head. Leaky roof, medical bill, spare bedroom, week-old woman reaching. The meanest part was that I knew some of those things might come someday. Age is not a character flaw, but it does make promises harder. I could not swear I would never need help. That uncertainty was the hook Grant had found, and he was tugging it in front of my child. Dad, Daniel finally lifted his head. Stop. Grant turned on him. No, this is what leadership looks like when everyone else is too emotional to think. You came to us for help with the wedding. You brought up the house repairs. If my money is involved, my conditions are involved. The room changed around that sentence. Maren looked at Daniel. You asked him about the repairs? Daniel's face went red. I mentioned the inspection report. I didn't ask him to control it. But you let him think he could. He had no quick answer. Patricia reached for Maren's hand, but Maren pulled it away. Here is what will happen. Grant set his coffee cup on the secretary's desk, right on top of an offering envelope. Leah will go home and let you two calm down. We will return to the hall, cut the cake, and tomorrow Daniel and I will meet with the planner to revise any language that feels unnecessarily sharp. But the principle stays. No unsupervised family drain. Drain. My daughter made a small sound through her nose. I looked at her and saw 6 ages at once. The baby with fever curls stuck to her forehead. The teenager pretending the thrift store prom dress was exactly what she wanted. The adult woman standing in a church office with her future being held hostage by a check. I nearly folded. It would have been easy. I could leave, let them smooth the paper, let Grant pay for the wedding, let Maren have the photographs and the plated dinner and the little brick house with new wiring. I had survived worse insults than Beggar. Older women are experts at surviving words. Then Maren looked at the envelopes in her arms and whispered, Mum, tell me what to do. That was the pressure point. Not Grant. Not the money. My daughter's trust reaching for me like a child in the dark. Every instinct in me wanted to make the answer painless. But painless answers had brought us to this office. I picked up Grant's coffee cup from the offering envelope and placed it on the windowsill. I cannot tell you what to do, I answered. I can only tell you what I won't do anymore. Grant gave a short exhale. Leah, don't make a scene. I looked at the quilt bag, at the envelopes, at Daniel's ashamed face. No, I told him. I think the scene was made when you put my name in that folder. I walked out of the office before my courage could ask for a chair. The hall looked ordinary again in the cruelest way. Children from Daniel's family had found the extra frosting roses. Ruth was stacking used plates without being asked. Someone had turned on the old wall heater, and it clicked beneath the windows as rain ran black over the glass. My purse sat on the piano bench. I opened it and took out 2 envelopes. One was cream-coloured from Grant and Patricia. Maren had given it to me earlier because she did not want to lose it among the cards. Inside was their wedding contribution, a cheque so large I had felt embarrassed holding it, as if the paper itself knew my bank balance. The second was my own envelope, thin and soft at the corners from being handled. $4,200 for wiring and plaster repair. Not enough to change a life, but enough to make a house safer. Enough to prove I had been building in quiet while Grant was warning people about my appetite. Maren followed me, then Daniel, then the Whitcombs. The guests sensed movement and turned. Public attention has a temperature. It warmed the back of my neck. I held Grant's envelope out to him. "This belongs to you." His expression closed. "Do not be theatrical." The old me would have lowered my hand. I would have found a private corner. I would have let him keep the dignity he had denied me. But the quilt was still on the piano bench, the corner I had cleaned folded inward, like a tucked wound. "You are paying for conditions I cannot accept," I told him. "So the money should go back to you." Patricia moved closer, voice low enough to pretend privacy. "Leah, this is not your decision." "No, it is mine." I lifted my own envelope. "This is also mine. I was going to help with the house repairs. I won't put my savings into a home where my daughter has to report kindness to her father-in-law." Maren's mouth opened. Pain crossed her face so plainly I almost reached to take the words back. "You're pulling the repair money," she breathed. The cost I had tried not to name showed itself on my daughter's face. My boundary did not land only on Grant. It landed on her kitchen walls, her old wiring, the little breakfast nook she had already measured for curtains. "For now," I answered. Her eyes shone. "It feels like you're punishing me." The sentence struck harder than Beggar. I could have defended myself. I could have pointed at Grant, at the folder, at Daniel's silence. Instead, I let the hurt stand between us because some truths need room before they can be understood. "I know," I told her. Grant used that opening immediately. "You see?" He turned toward the guests, as if they were a board of directors. "This is emotional leverage. This is exactly what responsible planning prevents." Maren flinched, but she did not move away from me. Daniel stepped forward. "Dad, stop using everything she does as evidence against her." Grant's eyes narrowed. "Then stop giving me evidence." That landed on Daniel too. I saw it. The boy inside the grown man, still waiting to be approved. Patricia touched Grant's sleeve. "We can discuss this tomorrow." "No," Grant replied, still looking at Daniel. "We discuss it now because your fiancé needs to understand what kind of marriage she is choosing. One with structure, or one where every crisis in her mother's life becomes your emergency." The room had gone quiet again, but not like before. The first silence had been shock. This one was attention. Ruth stood near the trash can with a stack of plates in her hands. Mr. Alvarez had come out of the kitchen and leaned one shoulder against the doorframe. Daniel's cousin, the one who had moved my quilt, looked at his shoes. I placed Grant's envelope on the gift table between the crystal bowl and the boxed mixer. Then I set my own beside it. 2 envelopes, 2 futures, neither painless. Maren looked at them for a long moment. "Mum," she began, but the word broke. I wanted to gather her up as if she was small. I wanted to tell her I would pay anyway, sign anything, stay away from holidays, swallow every name, if it meant she could have what she wanted. That was the dangerous part of mother love. It can dress self-erasure in holy clothes, so I kept my hands at my sides. "I love you," I told her, "but I will not teach your new family that I can be insulted into usefulness." Patricia looked away first. Grant did not. "You are proving my point with every word." Maybe he believed that. Maybe men like Grant survive by turning anyone's pain into confirmation of their wisdom. Maren reached for the blue and white quilt and lifted it from the bench. Her fingers found the border made from Tom's old work shirt. She held it against herself, not like a gift now, but like evidence. "Then let's prove the rest," she said, and her voice, though shaking, carried to every corner of the hall. Maren spread the quilt across the gift table. People shifted to make room without being asked. The crystal bowl was moved aside. The boxed mixer slid back. My homemade thing, the one that had embarrassed Grant by existing, covered the center of the table in blue squares and white stars. Maren touched the border. "This fabric was my father's work shirt," she told the room. "He died when I was 7. My mother saved it for 26 years. A little sound moved through the guests. Not pity exactly, recognition. Most older women in that hall had saved something unreasonable from someone they loved. Grant folded his arms. "Maren, this is sentimental theatre." She looked at him then, really looked, and I saw the moment his authority stopped filling the space between them. "You called my mother a beggar. Twice now. You told Daniel I came from scarcity like it was a stain. So yes, everyone should understand what you're talking about." Daniel moved beside her. His face was still pale, but he stayed there. Maren opened the quilt bag and took out the ledger. The legal paper had softened along the folds from my hands. She placed it next to Grant's envelope. "My mother did not ask us for help with her roof," she continued. "She paid it. She did not ask me for tires or a furnace or grocery money. She hid most of it because she thought protecting me from worry was love." That one struck me too. She was not making me perfect. I was grateful and ashamed at the same time. Maren lifted the cashier's check. "This was for the electrical work in the duplex Daniel and I want to buy. $4,200. From my mother. Not from a trust fund. Not from a bonus. From extra shifts, sewing repairs and selling my father's boat." Daniel's cousin looked up from his shoes. Ruth wiped her cheek with the back of her wrist. Patricia's expression had gone tight enough to crack. Grant kept his voice steady. "No one disputes that Leah loves you. Love and financial judgment are different subjects." "Good," Maren replied. "Then let's discuss judgment." She picked up the draft agreement from the table. Daniel reached toward her not to stop her, but because the sight of that folder in public frightened him. She did not hand it over. "This is the document Grant wanted me to sign if they helped with the wedding and the house. It says no marital money can go toward either parent without written agreement and disclosure to Grant for 5 years." A man near the coffee urn muttered something under his breath. Maren's voice shook harder, but she kept reading. "Particular concern. Leah Miller, mother of Maren Miller, presents foreseeable dependency risk due to age, limited retirement assets, home maintenance needs, and demonstrated emotional influence over Maren Miller." No one breathed for a second. The words sounded worse in my daughter's mouth than they had on paper. Paper had made them cold. Maren made them human. Daniel put one hand over his eyes. Grant's face reddened. That language was preliminary. "But your belief was not," Maren answered. Patricia stepped forward. "Maren, sweetheart, legal language always sounds harsher than family feeling." Ruth set her plates down with a slap that made everyone jump. "Family feeling was when he called her a beggar?" I almost smiled. Ruth had always been better at anger than I was. Grant ignored her. His attention stayed on Daniel now, because Daniel was the piece he still believed he could move. "Son, take control of this." Daniel lowered his hand. For a moment I saw the old pattern pull at him. The trained response. The desire to make the room neat again by disappointing the easier person. I knew that desire because I had lived by it. Then he looked at me. Not at Maren. At me, with the face of a man finally seeing the person his comfort had required him not to see. "Mrs. Miller," he began, then stopped. He swallowed. "Leah, I should have read every word. I should have stopped him before today. I didn't, because I wanted his money and his approval, and I told myself those were normal things to want." Grant barked a humorless laugh. "Do you hear yourself?" Daniel turned toward him. "Yes. For the first time today, I think I do." Maren closed her eyes briefly. Relief did not wash over her. It was too late for that cleaner feeling. But her shoulders lowered, as if she had been carrying a chair too long and finally set it down. Daniel faced the guests. There will be no wedding under that agreement. There will be no money from my father attached to our house. If Maren still wants to marry me, we will plan something we can afford after I earn back trust I spent too cheaply. Patricia covered her mouth. Grant stared at his son as if he had spoken a foreign language. I should have felt triumph. What I felt was tired. Maren folded the draft agreement once, then again. She placed it on top of Grant's envelope. "We are postponing the wedding," she announced. "Not ending it today. Not saving face today. Postponing it until I know whether Daniel can build a marriage without borrowing his father's spine." That line could have sounded sharp from another woman. From Maren, it sounded like grief with its back straight. The hall stayed silent. Grant looked around, maybe expecting someone to rescue him from the room's judgment. No one did. Even the children near the cake had stopped licking frosting from their fingers. I touched the quilt's edge, smoothing the square from Tom's old shirt. Grant's first silence had been the room not knowing what to do with cruelty. This silence knew exactly what it had heard. The party ended without anyone deciding to end it. That is how some ruptures happen. Not with a slammed door, but with purses lifted from chair backs and coats buttoned wrong because fingers have gone clumsy. Someone wrapped cake in plastic. Someone else gathered napkins that did not need gathering. People spoke in half sentences, afraid any complete thought might take a side. Grant left first. Patricia followed him after a long look at Daniel that I could not read. Anger, yes. Embarrassment, certainly. But there was fear in it too, the kind a woman feels when the household order she has helped maintain suddenly turns and bites her hand. Daniel did not go after them. He stood near the gift table while Maren folded the quilt. He looked like a man watching damage settle into the floorboards. "I can call them tonight," he told her. "I can fix some of this." Maren tucked the ledger back into the quilt bag. "Do not call them to fix this for me. Call them if you are ready to tell the truth without checking what it will cost you." He nodded, but nodding is easy. I saw that Maren knew it too. Ruth helped me carry my purse and the quilt bag to the church entrance. The rain had slowed to a mist, and wet maple leaves were pasted to the steps like dark paper hearts. Mr. Alvarez held the door with his hip while balancing the trash bag in one hand. "You want me to walk you to the car?" Ruth offered. I looked at Maren. She was still inside with Daniel, standing under the bulletin board where the youth group had taped construction paper pumpkins. "In a minute." Ruth understood. She always did when understanding was more useful than questions. I waited by the coat rack. My knees ached now that the room no longer required me to stand straight. The envelopes were still on the gift table. Grant's cream one. Mine with the soft corners. Maren had not touched either after the announcement. That hurt more than I expected. I had meant the boundary. I still meant it, but part of me had hoped she would pick up my envelope, press it back into my hands, and say she understood completely. Children do not always reward our best choices on schedule. Sometimes they are too busy bleeding from them. Daniel came over first. "Leah, I'm sorry." He kept his hands at his sides, as if he had forfeited the right to reach for comfort. "I know that doesn't repair anything." "No," I answered. "It doesn't." He flinched, and I did not soften it. Maren joined us. Her eyes were red, but her voice held. "Daniel is staying at his apartment tonight. I am going home alone." That surprised me. They had been spending most evenings at the duplex, painting cabinet doors and arguing cheerfully about light fixtures. Daniel accepted it without protest. That was something, though not enough to hang a future on. "I'll call you tomorrow," he told her. Maren looked down at her ring. For one terrible second, I thought she would take it off right there, and I knew the room would feed on that image forever. Instead, she turned the ring once around her finger and closed her hand. "Tomorrow afternoon," she replied. "I need the morning without anyone explaining anything to me." He nodded again. This time it cost him a little. When he walked out into the mist, he did not look back toward the parking spaces where his parents' car had been. He went to his own truck, shoulders bent against weather that was no longer heavy. Maren and I stood together in the church entrance. "I am angry at you," she admitted. I swallowed. I know. Not for saying no to him, for hiding so much from me, for making me think you were fine when you weren't, for letting me become another person you protected with silence. Each sentence was fair. Fairness does not make a thing hurt less. I thought worry would burden you. It did anyway. It just came late and dressed as a folder. A tired laugh moved through me and almost became a sob. Maren touched the quilt bag between us. "I don't know what happens with Daniel. You don't have to know tonight. I know I won't sign anything that makes loving you look suspicious." I looked away because the kindness in that sentence was too much to receive directly. Ruth cleared her throat from the bottom step, pretending she had not heard. "Leah, your car's right by the maple. I'll pull mine around after you get settled." Maren took my purse from my shoulder. "I'll drive you home. Your car is here. It can stay here." That was the first practical consequence of the new world. Not dramatic, not clean. Just my daughter's car under a church lot light, left overnight because the afternoon had become too heavy for separate exits. At home, Maren carried the quilt inside and set it on my kitchen table. She did not stay long. Neither of us had the strength to turn the day into lessons. Before she left, she picked up my envelope and placed it beside the sugar bowl. "Keep it for now," she told me. "Not as punishment. As proof that we are going to learn how to talk before money moves." After her taillights disappeared, I stood in my kitchen with my coat still on. The porch light shone through the damp window. For years I had left it burning whenever Maren drove at night, as if a 60-watt bulb could bargain with the world for her safety. That evening, I turned it off before going to bed. Not because I stopped loving her, because waiting is not the same as being needed. 3 Thursdays passed before Maren came to the church craft room with me. The quilting circle met under buzzing lights beside a cabinet full of hymnals nobody wanted to throw away. Ruth was there, and Mrs. Donnelly from choir, and 2 widows I knew mostly by their casseroles. Nobody asked for the full story. In rooms like that, women can read enough from how you unpack your sewing basket. I brought the blue scraps left from Maren's quilt and a square from an old pillowcase of mine, soft from years of washing. My hands were slower than they used to be. The needles sometimes hesitated above the fabric while my thumb searched for the right pressure. Maren sat beside me and threaded needles because her eyes were better. "Daniel found his own lender," she told me after a while, "for the duplex. Smaller loan, worse rate, no Whitcomb money." I tied a knot close to the cloth. "And you?" I told him I am not planning a wedding until I see how he lives without being managed. Not for a week, for real. That sounded hard and plain. I respected it. "Do you miss the old plan?" She gave a small laugh. "The chair covers? No. The certainty? Yes." I understood that. Certainty is one of the luxuries money can imitate. Across the table, Ruth pretended to be busy sorting thread, though her ears had gone still. Maren picked up one blue square and rubbed it between her fingers. I keep thinking about that word. Beggar. How fast everyone knew what he meant. How fast I knew. I set my needle down. "I knew too," I admitted. "That is why it hurt. Some part of me was afraid he had named what people saw." Maren looked at me, and this time she did not rush to rescue me from the sentence. "What do you see now?" she asked. I looked around the craft room. Bent heads, thimbles, styrofoam cups of coffee, a plastic butter cookie tin filled with buttons instead of cookies, because every woman over 60 seems to own one, by law or inheritance. "I see women who kept things together with less than they needed," I answered. "That is not begging. That is labour nobody priced correctly." Maren's eyes filled, but she kept sewing. When we finished that night, the new quilt square was uneven. One corner pulled tight and my stitches wandered near the edge. Mrs. Donnelly praised it anyway, but I knew the truth. It was not perfect. It was ours. At home, Maren carried my sewing basket to the porch. The air smelled like wet leaves and chimney smoke. Before leaving, she paused under the light. "You don't have to keep this on for me every night," she told me. "I know." "But Thursdays?" I reached inside and flipped the switch. Warm light spread over the steps, the railing, the pot of tired mums by the door. "Thursdays," I agreed. She kissed my cheek and drove away slowly. I did not stand at the window until her taillights vanished. I went back to the kitchen, laid the new quilt square beside the sugar bowl, and made myself tea in the good cup with the blue rim. The porch light stayed on, not as a plea, not as a bargain, not as proof that I was waiting to be useful. It stayed on because my house was mine, my love was mine, and anyone who came through that door would have to know the difference.